Hello, Jamie Lynn from Heartfelt Horsemanship here. Gareth is going to show you the next installment of the Masterclass series for producing Cherokee for performance. Before Gareth takes off, Gareth is going to do his anti-flight checks, make sure that he has lateral flexion. Gareth is also testing out his anti-flight checks because later on in the video we're going to show you the introduction of the bozal, because the bozal is a more appropriate tool to start teaching a horse to have a soft feel and eventually collection. Gareth is doing a disengagement. Again, making sure that Cherokee has a lot of dwell time to make sure that he knows he's done the right thing. He's not going to rush right into motion. He wants to make sure that Cherokee stays nice and relaxed and focused and able to learn. Make sure you're checking out your lateral flexion and your disengagement on both sides every ride and as often as necessary. Cherokee's been under saddle for a year, so he does know the drill of the anti-flights. That doesn't mean that we're ever going to skip them. We want to make sure that our horse is as good as we anticipate training. Nice 9-step back up, asking for a bit of a soft feel. Alright, so Gareth is going to start his warm-up by doing a follow the rail pattern, adding rollovers to make sure that we've got suppleness and communication with our legs and our reins when we need them. Nice fluid rollover there. What we're looking for in the rollover is we want our horse to maintain rhythm. So the walk is a 4-beat gait. When Gareth does a rollover, he still wants the tempo of Cherokee's walk to remain the same as when he was traveling forward. Follow the rail pattern is one of the most important patterns that you can perfect with your horse. The most natural thing for a horse to do is to follow a rail or follow a trail. So if you don't have an arena at home, you can mark out a space on a nice flat piece of ground and have your horse know where the boundaries of your arena are. We set the boundaries of our arena through follow the rail. We can set up all the other patterns that we're going to share with you to build towards consistent performance maneuvers. Gareth is working on a casual rein. I like to work all of our horses on a casual rein 80% of the time, even when we're building performance, because that's how we get horses to have a nice strong top line, how we keep them relaxed, remembering that when we pick up on 2 reins, it's only to make a shape. If a horse can't walk, trot, canter, gallop, or stand on a casual rein, they're out of control. So Gareth is going to put a lot of effort into a nice casual rein, working and flowing, so Cherokee is slowing down and speeding up off of Gareth's seat. A little bit of help from the leg. We don't have to use our reins to slow down every time, and that's one of the key points to you knowing if you're ready to start producing your young horse into performance. And you're thinking about our horse needing to learn self-carriage. Casual rein riding teaches a horse self-carriage. So how much time should you spend working on follow the rail, knowing that follow the rail is the foundation of all of the patterns and exercises we're going to share with you to develop towards performance? You should be following the rail often, every ride. This providing consistency for your young horse. You can see Cherokee has a nice free-flowing gait. Stops off of Gareth's seat. Gareth doesn't need his reins to stop. Gareth makes a shape to back up. That's an appropriate introduction of using two reins. Gareth wants to make sure that all of these things are looking really good and really sharp. So if we think of using 4 phases in everything that we do to make a request of a horse, suggest, ask, promise, tell. When you decide your young horse is ready to learn performance maneuvers, everything should be done at a suggestion or a request. If you still have to go to higher phases to get your horse to move forward, stop, back up, or trot and lope out, you probably want to spend a little bit more time with casual rein riding following the rail. And Gareth is going to practice a few turns, making sure that Cherokee is working off of Gareth's leg and focus. There's one thing we don't practice enough of as human beings is having focus. Focus provides consistency. All young horses, especially if we have aspirations of performance, need consistency. Consistency only comes through focus and feel. You'll notice that Gareth is spending a great deal of time on the walk. If the walk isn't good, the trot won't be good. So Gareth is making sure that he stops and checks out that that walk is fluid, free-flowing. I want you guys to make sure that you have a good casual rein walk on your horse before you move up to higher gaits. Because Cherokee has only ever been produced with Hartfeldt's program, you can see Cherokee is relaxed. He still looks, a little immature for a young stallion, but he travels forward nicely. Gareth doesn't have to use his highest phase. And those are the telltale signs that your horse is ready to think about performance. One of the questions that we often get asked is how do your horses have such nice top lines? And a good top line comes from a well-fitting saddle with a balanced rider and a horse being allowed to maneuver and balance their body in a way that makes sense to them. If we were to start a Cherokee with 2 reins in concentration, he wouldn't know how to use the muscles on the top of his body, and he wouldn't be very balanced. He wouldn't be able to listen to Gareth's leg cues, seat and focus very well. So the time we put into that casual rein riding is also building the muscles on the top line that we need for Cherokee to be able to develop appropriate muscling for higher performance maneuvers. is testing out sideways. We want to make sure that our horse can travel forward, go backwards, move left and right before we start asking for things like vertical flexion. We always have to have our laterals in before vertical. At this stage, we're not asking for, FEI dressage quality half passes. What we want is our horse to move off our leg at a suggestion and travel sideways in both directions equally. When we're thinking about performance and we're thinking about having our horse take appropriate leads, if we don't have sideways and we don't have appropriate response to change of directions through our seat and through a light request, we actually end up kind of tempting our horse into a big argument because they simply can't move out balanced. So all of the things that Gareth is doing with Cherokee right now is to test out and improve the lateral motion. We need lateral flexion before we get vertical flexion. So in this case, yes, lateral flexion is using one rein to have our horse break at the pole and soften through his body. Lateral flexion also is about having our horse move left and right from our legs and our focus. If our horse sticks straight through his spine, he can't bend his body and adjust his carriage to meet us at the higher gaits and the working gaits that we are working on training right now. So the effort into making sure those lateral motions are light, are responsive, our horse shifts their weight back. In the case of Gareth working on turning around, you can see Cherokee rocks his hindquarters back, puts his weight onto his bum, lightens his front end, so Gareth doesn't have to spend a lot of effort into hauling him around by his reins. This means we'll have access to vertical flexion when Gareth tries out the Bozal shortly.
Now I'm going to translate what I say. It's just in terms of the turnaround, that it's very much like an extra gate. We want to ask the horse to go into the stadium to slow them up. So I still use phases with my leg progressing, and then only pick up the rein if he gets lost in the knee.
Yeah. So Gareth's point is that he's working on his turnaround. So Gareth will use his legs to help Cherokee out so he doesn't have to use his reins to haul him around. The turnaround as a Western performance maneuver really needs to be done off the leg and off the focus, maybe a little bit of neck reining because that's what reining is. But what we're looking for is for Cherokee to be able to follow Gareth's focus and maintain that circle and maintain that turnaround until Gareth asks him to stop doing it. When you look at Cherokee's muscling, you can see him shift his weight to his hindquarters, lighten his front end, step his one foot in front of the other on the forehand, and then as he needs to reposition his weight, you can see Cherokee keeps his hind feet in a fairly small space, but still continues forward motion. If you are having impulsion issues, your horse doesn't stand, walk, trot, canter on a casual rein, your turnarounds are not going to work. If you don't have control over your horse's hindquarters, you're going to have impulsion issues, and your horse isn't going to be able to do a turnaround and maintain gait, maintain direction. So all of the things that we have taught you and we're going to continue to share with you through the Masterclass series, as well as the Positive Progress, lead you to a development of skills that can allow this type of training to take place. Oftentimes people want to skip ahead to the performance training and the horse won't move off of their leg. The horse needs reins to slow down, and they can't maintain gait and certainly can't maintain direction. We hope that you'll follow the program and get the Positive Progress steps in there first and make sure that they're good before you attempt performance. Sometimes in your performance training you may end up having to take a few steps back and go back to the very basics to achieve lateral flexion. stop off your seat, and then come back to working on that performance maneuver. So you see most of everything Gareth is working on right now is freestyle riding, casual rein riding, no contact. If those things don't check out, that means that your horse is not ready to travel in a snaffle or a bozal yet. Gareth is checking out some swing the shoulders. Can he move his front end right to left? As Gareth rides with his legs very quiet. If you're having to kick your horse and bump your horse along to get forward motion, your horse probably needs to go back and spend a lot of time following the rail in a casual rein. If you have to use too much leg and too much hand to ride at this stage, you're not yet ready for performance. So again, spending 80% of your ride making sure that the basics are good and improving will ensure you enough time to start working on performance. So Gareth is going to start working on the question box pattern. So the question box pattern at this stage is a figure of 8, and at the center of his figure of 8 he asks Cherokee to stop, make a transition. It provides a place for Cherokee to stop and ask a question. What would you like me to do next? So you see Gareth is riding 2 probably 15-meter circles. And as he comes through the center of his question box, he'll make a transition and do something else. So Gareth walked into the circle. In the question box, Gareth asked Cherokee to pick up a trot. So what this does is it teaches a horse to start hunting for a request from us. So Gareth kind of has the whole circle to plan if he's going to make a transition, and a transition is a change, correct? So a change of gait, a change of direction, a change of flexion in his body. And this exercise can take you up to very high levels. So right now we're keeping it simple because Cherokee's a 3-year-old. We don't want to blow his mind. We just want to have him get an idea that at the center of the arena he might make a change. And sometimes Gareth might not make a change, and that would be the transitions to carry on doing what you're doing. This is one of my favorite patterns. And if there's any pattern I could get you guys to work to obsession, it'll be the question box. Here in the next few weeks, we'll actually map out sizes of circles, have the question box very clearly marked, mostly for your benefit. But we might add more circles, so there's more of a transition. So stay with us through the Masterclass series and you can see how that pattern works. Gareth is asking for a nice slow walk. If he has to use his reins to keep Cherokee in a nice slow walk, Cherokee is likely considered out of control. So Gareth is being very particular about his thoughts. If he wants a fast circle, he's going to ask for a fast circle at the transition box. So Gareth is testing Cherokee out now to see if he's ready to work in the bozal. Gareth is picking up a little bit of contact on his reins, so he's there to make a correction. If Cherokee were to be resisting that or fighting him in terms of directions and transitions, and Gareth needed his reins to slow down or speed up, it wouldn't at all be appropriate to continue on this pattern for Cherokee. When people work patterns, I often ask, well, how often should I work patterns? I can ride the question box for days on end and never get bored. My horse never gets bored because there's always a transition coming. If you have a horse who tends to be higher on the impulsion scale or a little hotter, you might maintain the same circle for several circles. If your horse tends to be lower on the impulsion scale or harder to motivate, changing often and doing dramatically different things often gets a horse really interested in what you're doing because they are anticipating a change. Anticipation can be your best friend or your worst nightmare. You know, the question box builds appropriate and positive anticipation. You can even change directions in your question box. So if you can see, Cherokee's a young stallion, has a very busy brain, and he's staying incredibly focused, working this pattern. You'll notice Gareth is not creating a lot of dust, trying not to create an argument. He's trying to keep an open line of communication with Cherokee, so Cherokee's hunting the transition and hunting the change every time he comes through the question box, the spot in the center where he stops and makes a change. Sometimes the change might be standing and waiting for a few minutes. And so as Gareth is starting to work the question box at a higher gait, he may have to make more corrections. What Gareth is looking for is to make sure that the corrections are decreasing in number instead of increasing. You know, if you find that your corrections end up increasing and getting more and more frequent, you might work at a lower gait. You might work at a lower gait for a little bit longer until your horse is settled, or even abandon the question box altogether and go back to follow the rail or something that your horse finds really relaxing. And Gareth is transitioning into the bozal now.
Decided it's ready for bozal. I waited for transitioning on the seat.
So what Gareth is looking for, transitioning on the seat.
Direction without rein,
Directions without reins.
or if you use your rein very slightly.
Or if you use your reins, your corrections are decreasing.
Yeah, and on the pattern, sticking on the circle, I have to pick up my rein less.
Alright, so what is your plan of attack if Cherokee were to get bothered at the higher gates and your corrections were increasing? What would your plan be?
I would keep going with this for relaxation. I would follow through with rein and stick him on the patterns and give him a release when he does the right thing.
So Gareth would actually hold Cherokee onto the pattern until he had noticeable improvement, until Cherokee was working off of seat and leg more with fewer corrections. And that would be an appropriate time to end the session, or at least give your horse a little break before trying again. Cherokee is a young stallion that likes everything to go in his mouth, so he kind of plays with everything that comes near his face. And we try not to discourage that in a young horse because he's just young and learning and figuring out his world, and it gives him a chance to manipulate and play. Building his confidence so he doesn't learn to be scared of things. Fix that forelock.
Okay, so that's...
So Gareth is making sure that his bozal is fitting appropriately. He feels like the bozal is a little bit low. Can you see the bumps on Cherokee's nose just below where the bozal is now? We want the bozal to hit, at the upper bump, just below the facial bones. It's not on the softest, most tender part of the nose, and we certainly don't want it hanging down any lower on the very delicate bone at the front part of the nose. We want to leave it up, hanging on his face, so it pretty much hangs like a halo until Gareth activates his reins.
And we need them really loud on the rein before we put them to a bozal because it's a heavier device.
Yes, so the bozal can make a horse heavy if you don't have all of your positive progress done where your horse is responding at a request. We want to make sure that your horse has lateral flexion down, has indirect and direct rein down, If you're still using a lot of muscle when you're riding in the halter, you're probably not ready to transition into the bozal. Don't be discouraged. Just give yourself a little bit more time. Make sure that you're following through with your phases. If your horse goes, it suggests he needs to earn a release, and you might have to repeat that process thousands of times before you get your horse into the bozal. So make sure that your horse has appropriate responses, because this tool is a little bit firmer. So Gareth is going through the anti-flight checks again now, making sure that we have lateral flexion at a very soft request, so we don't end up pulling on Cherokee's nose and inflicting pain. Remember, all of our tools should provide easy communication. Cherokee looks very grown up in his bozal. Very, very grown up. And you wouldn't really think that the transition from the rope halter to a hack-more setup would be that extreme. But what we might find is Cherokee, might run into the bozal a little bit more this first ride or two. So Gareth isn't going to do every ride, full hour or two in the bozal. He's going to make sure all of his basics are good for, about the next 2 weeks. Making sure he starts out in the halter, all of his basics are good. And then each time Cherokee will ride in the bozal a little bit more and more until it's his main tool for training. You have to think about our progression into more advanced tools. If there isn't progress in one tool, don't go to the next highest tool. You probably have some holes in your program. So again, Gareth has made sure all of his anti-flights are good as gold. The horse can walk, trot, canter on a casual rein. The horse can stop off of his seat. The horse has a nice flexion, shift of his weight in the back up and his turnaround. All of these little things, you want them to be really good before we introduce the bozal, because we could end up causing a horse to become very sour on this tool, inhibiting progress and probably creating behaviors we didn't want. So you see, Gareth is feeling for the horse, waiting for Cherokee to make that change. He's not pulling harder.
A little bit of flat tire work.
Gareth called that a little bit of flat tire work, so you might work on that a little bit more before he takes off. And so what pattern are you going to work first?
I'm going to do the rail and start to pick up a soft feel on the rail where he's got a longer time to steer.
So Gareth is going to work the follow the rail pattern in the bozal. And so when you think about how often should I be following the rail, you need to have it good in the halter. Step up to the bozal. If you have your horses in snaffles, that would be another step. If your horse is going to curve it, that would be another step. So you can repeat all of these patterns through every step of your training as often as necessary. Nice flexion with a little bit of a toe nibble.
So he's still a little stiffer on this side. It's always been the case. But that's where the argument's been missing. Everything I do at the moment will work here.
So Gareth needs to work the right side a little bit more, because that's typically the side that Cherokee's a little bit more stiff on. Sometimes horses just tend to prefer one side to the other, just like you and I are left or right-handed. Cherokee actually had some injuries on the left side of his body, so we're thinking that's part of why he's gotten stiff on the right, with just overcompensation through his healing process. So he's well, he's got a clean bill of health, but he still just may need to develop more flexion on that right side to become more balanced. We choose to work our horses through recovery when at all possible, because horses are bred and born to be athletes. Athletes heal themselves with motion. We've got this beautiful young horse who's this precious, delicate mind. We want to keep him in partnership mode.
So my backup with the first, always with the bozal, my backup is lighter. I let the rope slide from my hand.
So Gareth is trying to employ a bit of a soft feel. He's not going to throw the reins back when he asks Cherokee to back up. Gareth is trying to be really conscientious for the feel that Cherokee gets from the reins and the bozal. So he doesn't feel like Gareth has thrown the reins away, the bozal doesn't come back and bump him in the nose. Gareth is at the stage with Cherokee where he's ready to work on refined riding with Cherokee. So Gareth is going to try and make sure that he keeps the hands of the horseman always flowing, being thoughtful about how he picks up those reins and how he releases those reins. So there's always really a nice feel and a nice line of communication between him and his horse. Gareth is testing out his lateral steps, working Cherokee sideways onto the rail, off the rail. This is how you can keep your follow the rail pattern a little bit more interesting for you and your horse. The objective is still to follow the rail. Gareth is testing out his lateral before he picks up vertical. So lateral is left to right. You'll be able to tip the nose left to right, the hindquarters left to right, the shoulders left to right, and the rib cage left to right. And if all of those things can be done at a suggest or an ask, without promising and telling, that Gareth will be prepared to promise and tell at any time it's necessary for Cherokee to understand him, then it's a green light to go ahead and start picking up a soft feel for some vertical flexion. So what I want you to pay attention to here is when Gareth starts maneuvering Cherokee around and working on his lateral stuff, you'll see Cherokee, shifts his weight right to left. And kind of each time Gareth, rolls him over, turns around and does some lateral work, Cherokee's nose starts coming down, he drops his pole. So he's already starting to have some thoughts of offering a soft feel because he's been through the program and he's stepping into the next appropriate step. So those are all little signs that told us we're ready to go ahead and work on performance with Cherokee.
He'll do non-step back up and release on the vertical, not too low.
Alright, so Gareth is going to work on his 9-step back up and improving his 9-step back up. So Gareth is going to reach down for a soft feel. He wants to make sure that Cherokee's pole stays at his withers or a little bit lower. If Cherokee were to drop his nose to the ground, Gareth wouldn't release those reins until Cherokee's head and his top line stayed quite flat. And this is a very important step to pay attention to because we don't want our horses ducking their nose out from under our reins or throwing their head in the air. And if we release when our horse's head is in the air or their nose is on the ground, we've actually just taught our horses to brace. So if you're teaching the back up at home, you want to make sure that you're thinking about the appropriate position. We're always going to reward the slightest try, but as you're making progress, you get a really clear picture in your head of where your horse's head needs to be. And if your horse can't pick up a nice soft feel doing a 9-step back up, Cherokee's head stays fairly level with his withers. If he can't do that, he's probably not going to be able to travel forward in the same position. The amount of time...
Leg on, you're holding, you get back with the stop and just get right there.
Gareth is holding him in place. Asking for a stride of soft feel, getting an idea to flex his pole. And really, if you look at... Gareth, can you do a couple more of those so I can talk about it a little bit more?
Yeah, so I'll do a non-step back up and then I'll go just to balance.
So Gareth is going to do a 9-step back up and then try a step or two forward with some soft feel. Now if you watch Cherokee's muscling, you can see the muscle just behind the pole piece on the bozal hanger. You can see that muscle's a little bit more active now. You can see his hind feet are stepping a little bit farther underneath of him. This is what we're looking to teach in developing a soft feel with our horse. And it takes time for those muscles between the hock and the pole to begin to develop. So We don't ever feel it's appropriate on, a first ride with a bozal or snaffle to have a horse carrying a soft feel for an hour. That takes a great deal of muscle. And what often happens when people don't try and train the soft feel one at a time, or they just go straight for a collected frame right off the bat, is your horse ends up hollowing out their back. I even see horses that have become malformed and look rather ewe-necked. They don't have top lines, they don't have muscles, and they end up developing muscles on the lower side of their body versus the top side of their body. So every time Gareth picks up that soft feel, it's like doing a little sit-up, it's like doing a little crunch. Access the muscles, let it relax. Access the muscles. You see Cherokee steps a little farther underneath himself. Gareth releases. So Gareth is only going to hold it for a stride or two at this point, and then once he consistently gets a stride or two, then he'll ask for another stride or two, and then another stride or two. Gareth will never hesitate to go back to a bunch of casual rein riding. If Cherokee were to get bothered by the feel of Gareth holding the reins shorter, he would step back to his basics to make sure that the lines of communication stay open. So Gareth is also being really particular about, looking for a nice relaxed walk. And then when things feel good, he'll pick up on his rein, slide down, pick up both reins. When Cherokee gives, he'll release. This is...
I'm running this now with the finesse rein, so it's kind of got that already. So I'm not going to go for more steps, I'll go for picking up from finesse rein.
So Gareth feels like picking up from, just picking up a soft feel and having a little flexion happen. Gareth is going to pick up a finesse rein, so 2 reins with a little bit of contact on Cherokee's nose. And see if Cherokee can hold it for a step. You can see Cherokee almost does a little half halt there, and he's trying to figure out what to do to earn that release. So Gareth felt like it was a little too rushed to get there, so he's going to go back to casual rein, pick up 2 reins, wait for Cherokee to break at the pole and give, and then gently release the reins. So when you start thinking about picking up a soft feel, remembering we're trying to honor this horse's learning process, knowing that this wasn't his idea, this was our idea. So we don't ever want this part of our training to feel like a fight, to feel like we're arguing with our horse. We want it to be a smooth, constant conversation and communication. So Cherokee is, he's young. He doesn't really know what's expected of him right now. So he can't be faulted if he doesn't carry a frame for more than 2 or 3 steps. He can't be faulted if he doesn't respond instantaneously. As we progress, we'll show you the steps we take to get more strides and quicker responses. Right now, we're just building in the stepping blocks to develop Cherokee to where he might want to ride with a soft feel. And if you've ever ridden a horse who really works off of their hindquarters, is appropriately soft on their reins, and knows how to flex for you, is really supple and really flexible, you'd never want to ride another horse ever. So we want Cherokee to be a lifetime partner for Gareth. We want to make sure that these little requests for a little bit of a soft feel are building positive steps in Cherokee's emotions, that he doesn't get emotional about having someone hold 2 reins, that he stays really nice and relaxed. If you kind of look at his neck muscle right now, you can see there's a lot more muscle working than you'd think for a horse who's really only been walking. Those little flexions, activate every muscle from pole to hock. And while he's not really strong right now, he's going to get strong quickly. You can see that the muscle develops super fast. Trying to rush that process ends up with a horse who might be really good at performance the first time or 2 out, but ends up ultimately be ruined and needing it to be retrained later on in life. We want to keep Cherokee on an uphill development. So Gareth is going to take the time it takes and let Cherokee be in charge of the timeline to where we can really work in collection, have Cherokee learn to love his job and enjoy the sanctity of being ridden in a soft feel. Nice little flexion there. You can see Cherokee even, slows down a little bit, and at that point, that little slow down isn't okay. I don't know if you can hear Cherokee breathing. He's, he is working muscles. He's not really familiar with working yet. This is a very athletic endeavor for him. I want to make sure that we remain sensitive to that. If we don't remain sensitive to that, we are going to end up with a horse who is sour when someone uses two reins. Because of the sanctity of this part of the process, it's also why we tend to get really protective over our horses. We put a lot of time in. It takes a lot of patience to get this far. I've been involved with other training programs that would ask for a horse to move out in collection, within the first ride or two, never really developing the top line or the muscles or the emotional capacity to handle being held in by two reins. Those horses never made it very far. The horses that someone took this amount of time with, ask for a step, give a long release, let your horse walk out, have dwell time and think about it. And then, maybe halfway down the arena, pick up another step, ask for a little bit of flexion, have your horse always hunting for your hands. This is a horse that has a long career of riding. So Gareth is going to transition into his question box right now. So the question box can be ridden with a soft feel or without a soft feel. So as we saw with the question box before, every time we go to the question box, we might do a turnaround, we might go sideways, we might change directions, we might ride with no flexion, we might ride with an extreme soft feel. All of those things just add more variations for your horse to always be asking for a question. Certainly the ultimate goal would be for Gareth to, be able to ride, a full question box pattern, without argument in maintaining a soft feel for a good, 20 minutes of his ride. Cherokee's nowhere near ready for that. So Gareth will release before Cherokee falls out of the soft feel and then pick it up again. If Cherokee can hold it for, a lap or two, Gareth is going to make sure that he gives Cherokee time to relax and move out, stretch out on long casual reins, just reinforcing that his basics are good.
So I don't kind of pick up the soft feel yet, but I do want to pick him up on the inside and get the bench.
So Gareth doesn't feel like he wants to ride the question box with a soft feel yet. He wants to make sure that he can get a little bit of inside rein action to help Cherokee pick up his shoulder and move out on the circle. We need to have this tool taught and in place so when we are working on collected circles, we don't need our reins for steering. But if our horse falls in, or his, young horses get tired quickly, so, if his body kind of falls into the circle, we now have a way of picking him up and setting him off the circle. Instead of getting him, stiff through his body, this is a way of keeping a horse supple and more maneuverable with our legs, so our training makes more sense to them. Nice little trot there. A little bit of a soft feel, built in some impulsion and some go. Transitions generally add some fuel to our horses. You can see that was a nice energetic trot from Cherokee. Nice little lateral step there. Gareth picks up on his inside rein, uses his leg to move the horse's shoulders over. See Gareth coming around, lifting that inside rein, moving Cherokee over a little bit. Gareth puts his leg on just slightly in front of the girth, lifts the inside rein until the shoulders step over. If you have a horse that drops their shoulder, this is the way to correct it.
Once he bends, I leave him alone. Just to remind him to stay on the circle.
So Gareth picks up that rein and that leg to remind him to stay on the circle, and then gets off of his face if he's doing the right thing. See Cherokee's a little tired there. It's looking really nice, Gareth.
How do you get the time? It's a little tired.
We're about 47 minutes in. You should be tired. Alright, so Gareth is going to end his session by doing a freestyle lope with Cherokee. Cherokee's been working for a little over an hour now. We don't want him to become sour to our performance training. Remember, the horse is in charge of the timeline. Cherokee will build stamina and flexibility as he gets older. Right now, we want to make sure our sessions are short and effective. Gareth's going to ask for a nice lope. Cherokee isn't quite ready. There he goes, figuring out how to lope out with that thing on his face. Gareth will ask again, see if we can get a lope a little bit easier. It's not looking too bad. Nice stop, rock back on his hindquarters. So all that little work, you can see an improvement in 1 hour from the beginning of Gareth's session to the end, where Cherokee uses his hindquarters a little bit more, has a little bit more life, and that's what we're looking for in our performance training. Thank you guys for joining us. We look forward to sharing the next step in the masterclass series with you.